Episode 801. The launcher had planned to seize the initiative right from the start, but after just one move, he found himself reliving the previous match. And to make matters worse than the last round with Swan 2, he was thrown into this mess right from the start. At least Wolfhead Garlic managed to land a hit on Shi Ji Yang at the start, and even threw a taunt at Invincible the Handsomest. But players aren't NPCs. With the pull this messy, the cleric was completely locked down. The launcher's stun, though, that was bound to wear off sooner or later. The Wolfpack players were mainly focused on how to break through this situation. Even while stunned, the launcher was already eagerly preparing his next move. The moment the stun wore off, the launcher fired a cannon blast to vault away. Invincible Most Handsome ignored him entirely. The launcher backed off, hoisted the cannon onto his shoulder, and as blue light gathered at the muzzle, a magnetic cannon shot flew out. Glory's vast array of skills came with an equally vast array of special effects. A shield could counter many attacks, but not all of them. Take the magnetic cannon, for instance. Its effect pulls the target in and drags them away, something a shield block is completely useless against. The launcher player was clearly well aware of this, leading with a trump card the shield couldn't block, eager to see how Woody Zuyun Shuai would handle it. But Invincible Handsome seemed completely unaware of this. The magnetic cannon shot toward him, and he just stood there, utterly unmoved. Just as it was about to enter the magnetic cannon's pull, he suddenly swung his sword sideways in a horizontal slash, executing a knockback. This strike was clearly controlled. The cleric wasn't knocked back the full distance. But just as the cleric slid out, Invincible Most Handsome didn't move his feet. With a sudden whoosh, he drifted sideways, perfectly parallel to the cleric. The scene was as eerie as two ghosts drifting through the air. But after a moment's pause, everyone understood. Invincible Most Handsome had entered the magnetic cannon's pull and was being dragged in. As the magnetic cannon was about to slam into him, Invincible Most Handsome swung his shield out, not to block, but to strike. He didn't use shield bash, so the impact carried no special effect, just a bit of damage. But at this moment, it successfully detonated the magnetic cannon. At that distance, the magnetic cannon's explosion would naturally harm Invincible Most Handsome, but with his shield raised in front, the blast wave couldn't push him back. As for damage, Shi Ji Yang had already picked up his cross and started chanting. The cleric remained locked under Invincible Most Handsome's attack, while the potential impact of the magnetic cannon was deftly neutralized by his skillful play. Sure, he was taking damage, but hadn't he done the same against Wolfhead Garlic, trading hits and letting Shi Ji Yang's heals carry him through the whole fight? The launcher, his clever plan foiled, was clearly taken aback, but he wasn't out of tricks yet. He unleashed a full arsenal: kiting, suppressive fire, point-blank blasts, satellite beams, every carefully prepared move, one after another. This time, the match everyone was watching finally wasn't so boring. They were all curious how Invincible Most Handsome would handle these highly targeted attacks. The result? He dodged, ducked, or blocked with his shield. Woody Zuijunlang weathered every single attack. Sometimes he took damage, sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he repositioned extensively, sometimes he just stood his ground and neutralized it. Invincible's techniques were just as varied, but one thing never changed. The cleric was still getting cut down by him, without a moment's pause.
No, impossible.
The launcher had finally exhausted every trick in their arsenal, yet the situation remained completely unchanged. Unlike the last round, where close quarters combat proved futile, now long-range attacks were equally helpless. The launcher player was completely out of ideas now. Any further attacks would just be repeating the same moves they'd already used. Invincible Mightiest might not be able to stay flawless forever, but the real problem was that breaking that deadlock once in a while didn't solve anything at its core. The cleric healed himself for a bit, but he'd probably be tangled up by Invincible Most Handsome again soon enough. If the cleric could have broken free, they never would have ended up in this situation in the first place. The launcher knew he wouldn't be the team's savior this time. Standing on the shoulders of their guild leader, Wolfhead Garlic, he he'd pulled off another embarrassing feat. In the end, the cleric still fell. The launcher wasn't idle either. He went after Shi Zhuyang, but the poor guy was running all over the arena, realizing that Wudi Zuijunlang had no intention of saving him. The launcher was throwing everything he had at Shi Zhuyang, desperate to salvage some dignity, but he'd started way too late. Sure, Invincible Best Looking had weaker gear and lower DPS, but that didn't mean he could just catch up from a standing start. And this cleric from Wolfpack was way more docile than Shi Zhuyang, just stood there, practically begging to be hit. Was this cleric doing it willingly? Of course not. He was controlled into this state by Invincible Most Handsome's attack. It was only at that moment that Wolfhead Garlic finally realized what was happening. Everyone was focused on how Wudi Zujunlang deflected every attack meant to interrupt him, but they overlooked the fact that his relentless assault had completely locked down his opponent. Even though his opponent was just a cleric, not exactly a combat-heavy class, turning a living, breathing player into a stationary punching bag is no easy feat, even for a cleric.
Is this another technique honed in PvE?
Wolfhead Garlic, familiar with the Knight class, studied Invincible Most Handsome's technique, but unfortunately, by then the Wolfpack's cleric had already given up struggling, leaving Wolfhead Garlic unable to closely observe just how Invincible Most Handsome was controlling things. Thinking back, most of what he remembered was how Invincible Most Handsome had countered the launcher's attacks. It wasn't until the cleric fell that Wolfhead Garlic realized with some regret that he hadn't gathered much useful information at all. The cleric fell, and Invincible Most Handsome immediately adjusted his direction, charging straight into the fray. That launcher player did have the sense to keep his distance, but he couldn't escape. Within 3 or 5 moves, Invincible Handsome intercepted him.
Ah, this is a good chance to observe too.
Wolfhead Garlic suddenly thought, and immediately prepared to see if Invincible Most Handsome could turn the launcher into a punching bag next. At the same time, Wolfhead Garlic felt a pang of regret. He shouldn't have conceded the moment Clawing Wolf fell. If he'd fought Invincible Most Handsome himself, he'd have a much clearer picture of the guy's real strength. In the end, the launcher copied Wolfhead Garlic's entire match, and at the last moment, he copied his move too. The moment he saw the cleric fall, with 2 enemies left and nowhere to run, he simply conceded and quit. Wolfhead Garlic watched this, feeling a bit frustrated, but he couldn't really say anything. After all, he'd set that very precedent himself. Winning one match like that felt awkward and lukewarm, but now they've won 2 in a row, and the second one perfectly replicated the first, leaving the opponent just as helpless. That actually shows some real skill. The moment the match ended, the Joy Sheep team erupted in cheers and applause, with quite a few people even starting to whoop and holler.
Wolves, you convinced now.
A match this infuriating doesn't exactly win people over that easily. But what's the point of talking tough now? How about another round from them, and they were completely shut down. The Wolfpack players were all dejected now. Their leader, Wolfhead Garlic, was helpless. In the end, he could only mutter a single word, "Let's go." Without another word, the Wolfpack players slunk away in defeat.